What are three keys to landing your first Scrum Master job? Number one, the mindset, the way you think, the way you envision what Scrum is, what a Scrum job is all about. Number two, we look at mastering the foundation, the whole Agile concept itself. Number three, understanding the practicality in terms of events and your role as a Scrum Master in event. In the past three series, we've handled most of those. Series one, I spoke about the mindset. Series two, I spoke about the foundation. And then series three, I introduced the Agile events and also tell me about yourself and tell me about your last project. So if you've not watched series 1, 2, 3, I'm going to put the link under this video so that you can be able to catch up. In the next couple of series, I want to give you everything you need in order to learn a Scrum Master job. Today, I want to focus on events, right? Events are the backbone of implementing Scrum. Remember, Scrum is a framework under Agile, right? The other framework, including Kanban, including Lean, including Spotify, including Less, you can name that, right? So Scrum is not the only framework, but Scrum is the most widely used for now. That's why we focus more on Scrum. So welcome to the Scrum chat room. And if you're new here, make sure you're clicking the subscribe button. For returning subscriber, we promise to deliver the best. And today, I want to focus on backlog refinement. Now, backlog refinement is a very important event, but most often many people ignore it. And when it's not done properly, it's going to lead to a lot of challenges, trust me, from your planning to your review to your retrospective and even the result that you get. They are largely determined by the backlog refinement, which is why it's very important. And I know for people who are kind of purely Scrum.org, PSM, they will say, oh, backlog refinement is not an official event or so. It might really not be official, but it's the backbone. Now we're focusing on the practice. We're not focusing on what the Scrum guide says or what it doesn't say. One of the things you will understand is that when you start implementing Scrum, you realize that the Scrum guide is not Scrum, right? Scrum is about dealing with people. It's about dealing with reality, right? So if you happen to go on the job and it's like, oh, according to the Scrum guide, man, you're missing everything. When you get in practice, it's about dealing with people, which is why engaging yourself in practicing and being in a community where you can start role-playing most of the stuff is very important. We have an awesome community for those who want to be part of it, and I definitely will put a link under this if you want to check it out. Good for you. But now we're here for business, right? What's the business for today? The business for today, I want to teach you everything you need to know to be able to run an effective backlog refinement. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. The first thing I want us to start with today, I want us to start with an agenda. Agendas are very powerful in helping us accomplish anything we want to do. Most often, if we don't pay attention to an agenda, the first thing is that we are not going to be so clear. We're going to be everywhere. Just imagine if I had to come do this video and I did not have an idea of what I want to talk about, right? I'll talk about everything, but I'll talk about nothing. But today, the focus is mastering the spring backlog refinement as a key event. Now, before I even go to the agenda, let me give you an idea, because sometimes we might be talking about backlog refinement. Many people don't even understand why we should do backlog refinement and what is even the purpose of backlog refinement. But before we get into talking about event, why do we talk about event? We talk about event because we are implementing Agile. Agile is incremental development, and Agile is customer centric. Now, the reason why we create event is because we need to let all the stakeholders be involved. So event is what bring people together. Think about kind of event in your life, a birthday event, your baby shower event, maybe graduation ceremony. These are events, right? Events bring people together. That is why we'll talk about daily stand-up as an event. We'll talk about planning as an event. So when you hear the word event, there are certain events which you can only invite a certain class of people, right? So let's say that you're organizing a book launch. It's not just everybody you invite, right? There's specific people you want to see them there. Let's say that you are organizing a conference, a press conference on women. It's not everybody. So the reason why they're called event is because there are specific people who need to come into that event. Now, but the goal of event is also in the space of Agile, also understanding the reason why we focus on product development and not project. When I say I have a project, it means I have a list of activity to do. It means I have a specific budget which I need to accomplish those activities within a specific time. When I say I'm building a product, I'm more focused on who need that product when they need it, right? I'm more focusing on getting the requirement of what they need. So the example we're going to use today, it's about building. We're going to build an estate as a product, right? Now we can build an estate as a project, and we can build an estate as a product. Now, if I want to build an estate as a product or as a project, right, I want to give you an idea from the transition from waterfall into agile. Waterfall is about project, and agile is about product. And then we now understand the reason why we need to do backlog refinement. Now, let's say I want to build an estate as a project. What am I going to do? I'm going to think about how much money it's going to take me to build an estate, right? And then I'm going to think about the time I want to build that estate. I want to think about the scope, the different houses, and all of that. So based on my budget, I'll start customizing what I need to do, my planning and everything, and all of that is going to fit in. Now, I want to build that same estate as a product. Now, the first thing is not going to be me thinking about my money and what the money can do. The first thing will be for me to think about the customer. Who am I building this estate for? And what do they need? Now, based on the customer, I'm going to collect the requirement. The requirement is now going to give me an idea of how much they need. Right. This is why as a Scrum Master, you don't focus so much on budget. Why you focus so much on delivering what the customer needs. Okay, now we understand the difference between project and product. All right, so let's take our case study example. We want to build this estate, right? Now we say this estate is going to have about 15 condos, right? Now, collecting requirements, are these condos going to be the same? What class of people do we want them to live there? What are the amenities? What is the structure of the building and all of that? These are requirements we're going to collect, right? We have swimming pools. Are we going to have some restaurants there? Are we going to have like a conference hall there? These are the requirements we need to be able to collect in order to know exactly how to start building the project and where exactly to start. Now, you will also agree with me that in order to do this, we need different classes of people, right? We need to look at different engineers. We need to look at plumbers. We need to look at our city council. We need to look at permit and all of this. Everyone engaged is called a stakeholder. And then we are going to look at what specific point are we going to bring together these stakeholders. They're not going to be everywhere, right? That's why we talk about event. And then one of the event is going to be backlog refinement. Now, consider backlog refinement when you are getting ready to start. Now, when you're getting ready to start, what are the couple of things that you need to do? This is where we were looking at our agenda. Now, we want to review what the upcoming work. Now, think about a backlog refinement like we are reviewing the upcoming work. Backlog refinement is not for the current work that we are doing. We're reviewing something that is coming up. Let's say we already started with a project, right? And then we want to plan about what we want to do for the next 2 weeks. What is going to influence what we're going to do in the next 2 weeks is the fact that we have had a conversation with the customers and maybe some of the things or requirements have changed or some of the priority have shifted. So we need to be able to order this. I'm going to show you in a bit on the Jira bot on how to do that. Right. Then we want to be able to look at the requirements that we have at hand. We want to be able to clarify it and to have a conversation about that. And then we want to be able to do some estimate on exactly how much time it's going to take us to complete the work that we are going to, the item that have been highlighted. And then we want to look at the acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria simply means it's not just about completing work. It's about completing what our customer wants. And our customer is going to give us on their requirement, the acceptance criteria, and exactly what they want us to do. And then we're going to prioritize the work based on how we are going to complete this work. All right. So the first thing from here, I'm going to share the next window, which we want to focus on when you're thinking about backlog refinement or agile project in general. You want to think about how to even create this project idea, right? How do we get this idea? I know most of us understand this. We can explain this, but if I put you in a array environment, I give a Scrum team, go ahead and facilitate it. Will you be able to do that? Do you know exactly how to create that on your project and your project management platform and all of that? These are stuff that a lot of people are missing, and this is why we always say, "Oh, join a community of practice. Go engage yourself." It is priceless for you doing that, right? There's a whole big difference from those who just read on their own and try to figure out stuff on their own, and those who actually belong to a community where they can practice with others. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of stuff that most of our students do. Right now, we just talk about backlog refinement. It's not just enough for you to understand this in theory. You need to be able to understand this in practice. But then I want to take you from scratch, right? Because we're going to be doing the next series on planning, on daily stand-up and all of that. So on this series, I want to take you on how to even come across with the project. Now, this is my Jira board. This is what you see, right? I'm also going to put a link down on how to create your own free Jira board. I'm using a free Jira board because I want you to know that you can also do it. You don't need to pay anything to get on this board. Now, when you create a board, I'm going to go to project and I want to create a new project out of the serve, right? And I want to create a Scrum project. And I want to use the template. Yeah, that's already there. And the two type of project, there's a team-based project and there's a company-based project, right? The difference you can read right here is just on the way you want the project to interact. Now with a team-based, it's more simplified project. With a company base, you can configure it. That's why when you work with different companies, you realize that their board are configured differently. But then what you need to master is at the different menu and what is it meant for. The backlog it doesn't matter how a Scrum board is configured, the backlog will always be the backlog. The Scrum board will always be the Scrum board, right? The report will always be the report. You just need to know exactly where to find it. And that's the reason why if you master one of these two, you can also master the others, right? So I'm going to go with company based, a bit more complicated. I want us to talk on our estate project, right? I want us to get something that we can all do this estate project implementation, right? Now you realize that when I type this word, it gives me a key for every project. And I'll show you how this key reflects when we are looking at project ID. When I say, oh, I'm working on story XYZ, I'm looking at story XYZ. I'm going to show you that. So I go on next and my project is what? It's created. Right. So my project is created. I don't want to connect any of these to Confluence and other stuff. Now, Confluence is also linked to your project, right? I'll have a different session when I talk about Confluence, but today I want us to focus on just the backlog. So I'm going to skip this. I'll show you how to connect it. Now, it kept me to my project board, right? So on my project board, you realize that I have a couple of columns right here. I have to do, I have in progress, I have done, right? These are like the 3 columns. I can be able to add most of this column in here. I'm going to show you how to add most of this column in a bit. But then if you want to do any other stuff, you go on the project setting and you can be able to configure most of this on the project setting, right? The project key, the project name. I can be able to look at the summary, the different tags which I want to get here. I have box, epic story, subtags, and tags. I can add all of them there. You can also, in a company base, they can also configure these to have like most of the stuff. Now, this is where you come set most of the rules, the people you want to add on your team. This is where you add them, the permission, the notification, automation, every stuff that you need. You can be able to do it right here, right? You can be able to do it right here. Now, that's for another project. I'm going to go back to my project. Now, there are a couple of things I want to teach you today. What I want to teach you today is I want to teach you on how we started in building the backlog, and I want to talk a bit about how we refine the backlog. Why do I choose to start this as the first step? Because without a proper backlog refinement, your sprint planning or your iteration planning will definitely make no sense. And subsequently, all the event will also not make no sense. Now, on the board, on the Jira board, you're always going to see this feature create. So if I click on create, now it gives me the project. Remember, I have multiple projects on my board. So when I click on create, I need to make sure that it's the project I want. And I also need to make sure I know the issue type. Now, the different issue type are epic, story, tags, and bugs. And I know we talk about future, but for the sake of the configuration on Jira, there's nothing as a future, right? We have epics. Epics are more higher up there, but in a Jira board, consider epics as futures. Now we're looking at our Excel implementation, right? So the first feature we want to see, let's say that we want to look at let's just pick one of the building as a project, right? Because that's an end-to-end project that we can build. We may have about 20 building we want to put in. Let's just take one of them as one that we want to focus on. So the epic status, I want the epic to be on to do. And I want to talk about the living room to describe exactly what the living room is going to be like. So I'm going to do that. Then that's the epic name, living room. Summary. I want to look at the living room design, right? Living room design. So as I look at my living room design component, not really important. I can put my description right here and a high level acceptance criteria, right? Description, everything that will be present, everything that needs to be present in the living room, right? So I'm looking at this. That's a short description. Acceptance criteria. In most of the cases in company configure board, your acceptance criteria will be a different tab. But since it's the trial version, acceptance criteria are going to be more or less part of your body, acceptance criteria. Now, my acceptance criteria is simply at a very high level. I'm going to say that must meet an international living room standard. Okay. So that's my acceptance criteria. Now I'm also looking at, if you go reporter, I'm the person creating the story is always the person who is the reporter, right? You can also think about this. It's blocked by, if I had other epics that I've created, let's say, for instance, I want to first of all do my swimming pool before I start doing my living room, or I want to first of all complete the garage. I can come here and say, okay, this is blocked by the garage. Unless the garage is finished, we cannot start with this project. Right. So now when I say block by, I'll go here. So if I have listed the garage here, I'll be able to see that in the drop down here. Okay, assignees, I can assign to anybody who is in charge of that project. if this is top priority C, I can choose the priority here. This also helps us to prioritize our backlog. Now, and the label is not that important. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create. And then a specific spring. No, no. So let me just click on create. Right. Now, if we click on create, now if I go to my backlog, you realize that I don't have Epic on my back in my backlog, right? The backlog are more or less for issues and stories. Now, where do we find our epics? Our epics is look right here. We have what? We have Epic panel. If I turn my Epic panel on, you realize that right here I have an Epic. Right, I have an Epic which I just created right here at this corner. So you see right here. If I go to view details of my epics, if I go to view detail of my epics, I can be able to see the different aspect on what the epic is all about, who it's assigned to. I can be able to configure and add more of these different aspects here. So for the sake of keeping this video in a reasonable length, I just want to go ahead and create a couple of stories that are going to be linked to this epic, and then I'll show you on how to prioritize it. So I go ahead on my create menu. I want to create a couple of things I want to see in my living room. So this is not longer going to be an epic. It's going to be what? A story. Right. And for the stories, I'm just going to put what are some of the stuff we want to put in the living room? I'm just gonna put the TV. Right, I want the TV. What type of TV? Do I want an LED screen? Do I want a 16, 90 screen and all of that? So when I put the LD, I want to say as a tenant, we know how to write stories, right? If you don't know how to write a user story, that's another whole different class. As a tenant, I will like a smart TV in my living room with the possibility okay, I want a smart TV in my living room. Let me keep it simple. My living room, so I can connect my phone to watch movie and not have to spend on cable or satellite. All right. So now this is a story because for every story we want to see, why is it important? Why don't we just get any TV that you can connect to a satellite, right? It's going to cost us extra money to buy that. So I'm already paying so much on my phone. So let me get a smart TV. It's going to save me a lot of money, right? So I can save money to connect, so I can save more money. So we look at the acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria is going to be like, criteria. It's going to be like we're looking at the TV size is at least 90 inch, right? I'm going to look at the TV size about 90 inch. I'm going to look at can connect to YouTube and Netflix. Right. I'm going to look at all of these criteria. Should be hung on the wall. Should fitted in the wall. Right. Fitted in the wall. I'm looking at black color, right? Black color, or matches the couch color. So you realize that any person you're working for, they're going to have their own acceptance criteria. So we're not just talking about a TV, the acceptance criteria which we want them to get there. So we also have priorities and everything, and we also want to link it to our Epic, right? So we've created our TV, and you see it's part of the living room, and we can see that it's on to do. I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of other items very quickly without going through the steps so that we want the in our living room. What do we want to see? I want to see chairs. The chairs will be able to have acceptance criteria and everything. On our living room, what else do I want to see? I want to look at the flooring, right? What color of the floor? I want to be look at the walls, color, right? Do I want right here? It's just like, do I want wooden floor? Do I want tile floor? I want to be able to look at the deco. I want to be able to look at the lights, the lightning. I want to be able to look at what so many things that I want in our living room, right? I want to be able to look at the doors, design. I want to be able to look at, let's say, uh, okay, let's say I want to look at the window blinds or windows design. Uh, So there's so many items we can want in our living room. Remember, right here, it's not connected. I can simply click here and connect it so that I know that everything here is about living room, because we can talk about deco, but deco is for the bedroom. So remember, bedroom is going to be like a different feature all on its own. Now, in our backlog refinement, simply, let's say we're a team that had to do this project. What exactly are we going to do? We are looking at, based on all of these items, right? Which one is going to be like a priority on our list? If you let's look at this item. Now, looking at just our normal common sense without going into agile, refinement simply means that where are we going to start? It's logical that you cannot start talking about putting a TV on the wall without already painting the wall, right? So we can start already dragging and moving our stuff here and realize that okay, this is gonna come here, but then we also look at the floor. Maybe we cannot even start painting when we don't have the floor ready, all of that. Or might decide to start painting before putting the floor. So we say, okay, we're gonna start first with the floor design and all of that, because the floor design will also help us to know what is the colors on the wall and all of that. And then we can say, oh, we can even start with the floor. Let's first do the windows. We need to make sure that we done with the windows, we done with the doors before we get ahead and put the floor. If not, if we don't have all the windows on the floor and the doors, we put the windows, we might have intruders come in and destroy everything. So this is like a common sense that helps us to prioritize. Now, if we go and start talking about the door design and I click on this item, I'm talking about it with my team. So we open up the story. When we open up the stories, like, oh, it's just a window design. What type of windows do we want? We'll start putting out the description of the windows that we want and everything. And then we're like, okay, who is best to handle this? Now, this is already our first item, so we want to make this highest priority, right? And then when we make this highest priority, what we also look at who is assigned to and all of that, right? So if I go around here, more fees, we do our estimations and like, okay, this is gonna take us about 2 or 3, so say three story point and all of that. Which spring do we want it to fit into all of that? So backlog refinement simply means that we are trying to organize this and make sure that we know exactly the effort. So for you to actually say that this backlog is refined, the first thing, we order the item based on how we definitely want it them to be. Secondly, we need to make sure that every item have a detailed description. So the description and acceptance criteria is going to fit in here. And then we need to make sure that uh, it's assigned to, we know the priorities, it's assigned to somebody, right? We need to make sure that it has a story point. Let's say this is going to take us 5 story points, about 5 days or so, right? We also want to make sure that fixed version, we're going to talk about fixed version another day. We're also going to make sure that we know who is going to be working on the story. So let me say I created a story and I'm going to be doing the design, or I'm in charge of it. So we save here. Now, when we save here, look at this, what has changed. It has a priority, it has a story point, and it's into to do this. So I can decide to create space, a space holder for my first sprint. This is sprint one. And I simply drag this here. This item have been discussed, is ready to go to sprint one. Remember, we have not spoke about sprint one, or we've not gone into detail about sprint one already. So in the backlog refinement, we are looking at stuff that in our backlog, we're prioritizing them, we're making sure that they're in order. When they are ready for developing, we can now pull them into our sprint, right? Let's just assume that I also have this ready, right? And also have this assigned to somebody. All of them are still in to do, and I have this assigned to somebody. I'm the only person on my board, so that's why you can only, when if there are many people on your board, when you click this drop down, you're gonna see many people here, right? So I move this to spring one. Now we refining our backlog. Now, Agile also advise that we do like two backlog deep, right? You go two backlog deep. So I can still create a space holder for another sprint. At the top of my backlog, you see right here, if I create another sprint, it's going to go automatically to sprint two. So let's say I come here and I refine this other item and I think, oh, this is not so much something that I want to start working on it right now, right? This is not something I want to start working on it right now. So what happened is that I can pull this over to sprint two. Right. So you realize that I have a placeholder for my sprint one. Now, we have not started this because backlog refinement simply means that we are preparing what we are going to start for the next sprint. So in our next series, which is going to be series 5, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to ensure that we actually get all the items we need for our spring one, and I'll show you what we actually do in the spring planning and how to launch this spring. So this is going to come up on Monday, so watch out on the video on Monday. I'm going to take you to that video. All right. If this was helpful for you, make sure you're sharing, make sure you're liking, make sure you put a comment, and also make sure you put a question. I'll definitely look through and make sure that I'm responding to your question. For those who need mentorship, you want to be part of our team and want to be able to understand not just watching this on TV, but getting the real hands-on experience and letting us take you from point A to point Z to where you feel like you're missing to where you have a job, then we have an amazing community that can help you close this gap. What you just need to do is send me a text message using the details in the description or what you see on the screen, and I'll be able to help you through. All right, I'll see you in the next video.